Sci-Fi Chronicles Season 2, Episode 16, The Vow. Scott and Elizabeth Ryan. And yes, I'm in my car. This is sometimes the only place I can find peace in this life, so that's where I'm recording this. This is a one-of-one podcast, people. There will not be another one like this. It was broached. I thought it was a great idea. It worked out great. I'm not giving away anything. I just want you guys to enjoy it. But I want to say to you, Scott, and to you, Elizabeth, thank you. It was amazing. I appreciate all the nice things that were said. I appreciate the candor, the openness, all of it. And I think it will resonate with so many people. So to the viewing audience, and I'm going to keep repeating this for these intros, April 19th to the 21st in Binghamton. If you can make it, please do. But for now, enjoy The Vow.
Sci-Fi Chronicles Season 2, Episode 16. I'm with Scott, Gump, I think another guy who very much has kept, I think a lot of people think of you as Gump, right? I'm sure there's plenty of people who know you as Scott, but Gump has stuck, and there's an empty chair, but that chair is going to be occupied very soon. We're going to do this a little bit differently. So we'll do a little meet and greet in a second there too. But Scott, like many of the guys, I have had a chance to see you in the not too long ago in New York City, but it was brief. It's good to see you again and get a little time to catch up. How you doing?
Yeah, greetings, brother Mike.
Stop it.
It's a Friday night. It's Chi-Fi Fridays. It just feels right. I've been an avid watcher and following this as it goes along, and it again, everyone's touting it, but I think it's amazing that you kind of created this little forum for us all. It's a little like midlife crisis therapy for many of us, and
that's what my wife calls it when I come into the room. Scott, she goes, "Go have your midlife crisis, Mike. Take care."
We were just talking before, about the alumni weekend coming up, and there's another thread I'm on, text thread I'm on, and Favor just literally named the thread "Midlife Crisis Chi-Fi." So I think it resonates with all of us, unfortunately.
Yeah, no doubt. It's that time in our life. I think I'll have to go back and look, Scott, but I think because today's February 9th, but I'm pretty sure I'm within the week timeline from when I first sent Jeff this really long text message. He and I had been on a phone call, and it kind of ended a little abruptly for one of us needed to go somewhere with our kids. But I was like, hey, I have this idea, but I need to flesh it out a little bit. Maybe I'll just email or text it to you. And he had no idea. We hadn't talked about anything. And then, again, somewhere I'll have to look, I'll find the text message, but I sent him kind of the bones of what I would put in the introduction. And he immediately came back and he was like 100%, like any way I can help. We can, and he kind of had some of the thoughts with the Spotify piece and the YouTube videos and doing that. Cause I really, in the construct of it, I wasn't really sure what it would look like. Like, I'm so glad it's not just in audio. Like, it's been so much better to be able to see people's faces and laugh.
To see some of these guys. I mean, you've aged very well.
Thank you.
A lot of guys have. Some guys haven't. I'm questionable. I definitely, don't have.
No, man. Listen, it's a nice clean shave. It looks like you'd have a head of hair there a little bit if you let it go.
It's just, a little
I see
here,
it. I got you.
There, but
but you've taken care of yourself. I saw you in person. You've taken care. I mean, you don't physically. You look very similar in my memory, at least.
Well, thank you. That's I'm it's not for my diet or drinking habits. I'll tell you that. But
all right, so walk me backwards a little bit. You're a part of the Pi Pledge class. You and Kubiak are slightly older than the rest of the guys who come through that class. Not tremendously. I think it's maybe a year difference than those other guys. But how did you get to Binghamton?
So I grew up in Albany, outside Albany, in a town called Colony. So I'm the oldest of three. My mom had 3 kids in 3.5 years. So we're all kind of like right on top of one another. Yeah.
Kudos.
We're all in high school at the same time. I was a
Right.
senior, my sister's a junior, my brother was a freshman. So I mean, similar story to almost everybody. It's so funny listening to everybody. I mean, I feel like we all have so much in common, and like we've even like most of us applied to the same schools outside of Binghamton. So, I applied to Boston College, I applied to Notre Dame, I applied to Siena, which is upstate. I applied to Lemoyne for some reason, I don't know why. Hartford, SUNY schools, Oleana, Albany, probably Buffalo. And I got into all of them except for Notre Dame.
Okay.
And it
Yeah,
was
it's tough school.
yeah, I was really, really dead set on going to Boston College. I just listened to Pony's episode and he was going to go out. I think we all would have met in Boston if this turned a different way.
Yeah.
Um, but same story, way too expensive for
Sure.
me and my family. Didn't have much financial aid, didn't get any meaningful scholarships. So I didn't want to go to SUNY Albany because it's literally like 10 feet from my house.
Too close. Yeah.
Yeah. And my dad took me on a trip down to Binghamton. He worked for the state, so he was always on the road and kind of knew these little, cities along the way. And, I don't remember falling in love with it, but that's ultimately where, I signed up. So.
Got it. So you're at Binghamton, and do you know what you're going to do? Like, are you pointed towards a certain career path?
I didn't know exactly. I did apply for and got into School of Management out of the gate. I was always, kind of into math was my strongest kind of suit, and management seemed like something like I'd be interested in. I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do, but I entered into the School of Management as a freshman. I also came in, I guess I was pretty good in high school, or at least good enough at test. I came in with
Yeah.
a bunch of AP credits, so I really came in as like a second semester freshman. I already had, I think, 16 credits or something like that. So,
Right.
um, I was able to kind of leverage that later on and take it easy when I needed to.
Right.
But yeah, so jumped in there, School of Management, and I had I ended up rooming with a kid named Chris Van Dyke, who I knew from high school. Wasn't really super friendly with him, but we were both going to Binghamton. We figured, hey, why not? And we ended up in Hinman, in Roosevelt Hall, which is like, the farthest away dorm on the highest floor. Like it's basically Siberia
Right.
of the campus life. So that's where we landed in, I guess it was the fall of '95.
Okay. So you're in Hinman, and by the way, the Siberia of Binghamton is Hayes. You were not quite there. You were close. You were like in Russia, but like Siberia
Yeah.
is. And does the first year for you just pure academics, and there's no like kind of thought of doing something like this?
It was academic for sure. I mean, it was a really, so we ended up we were in a six guy suite. So it was myself and this dude Chris, who I was friends with, like I said, but we, didn't really have a lot in common outside of going to the same high school. And then we were roommates with four other suite mates who were these four Korean kids who were from Queens, who all went
Right.
to, I think, like Bayside High School, I don't know, one of those places. And three of the four spoke English and one didn't even speak English.
Hmm.
So it was an interesting group of guys.
Right.
Um,
All good. It's become the norm in these to have a barking
Yeah.
dog. Like it doesn't feel right.
But so, in Roosevelt it wasn't the best social scene at all. So, I mean, we had fun. We went to parties when we could, or when we found out about them up in Siberia. It was,
Yeah.
I was thinking again too, just like different things, and there's no social media. So everyone, how do you find out?
Of course.
You get a flyer, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Everyone flyers, hands them out. Like we were so not cool. Like we wouldn't even get flyers in our dorms. Like they wouldn't even bother wasting the paper to
Oh,
come
that's great.
and let us know, that someone was having an after hours. I think like we got Alpha Chi Rho flyers or beta flyers or something, just like,
Okay.
just people searching for someone to come to their house. So it was academic. It was fun. I didn't have, a horrible time, but I definitely felt like, looking around and going to fraternity parties, there was definitely more going on that I wanted to be part of.
Mm.
So, long story short, at the end of the first year, I did try to break free from Hinman.
That was going to be my question was, did you try to get out or did you end up right back where you were?
Well, so I paired up with this other guy who I'd met who his name was Jeff Stever. He was in Alpha Chi Rho actually. And we kind of got together and he didn't love his roommate and I certainly didn't need to move forward with my roommate. And we tried to get into CIW, but once you're outcasted, as you well know, and a lot of guys know, if you're in Dickinson or Hinman, getting to either CIW or Newing is next to impossible. So
Yeah.
we got shut out of going there, but we did get into a different dorm in Hinman. I think it was Lehman, which was an upgrade from Roosevelt. So I had a new roommate and in that building is where Elizabeth was living, who my wife, Liz.
Yep.
If you met her, Liz, if it depends on when you met her. She's Liz up until about 2002, and then she turned to Elizabeth. But so she was living there, and also in the same dorm was Slouch lived there. Faber had lived there. Jake and Kevin lived in that dorm.
Okay.
And actually Lisa Ruck lived there too, who was Joe Cashaw's girlfriend at the time.
I remember Lisa. Yeah. So
So
wait, for Elizabeth, is that her second year then in that dorm?
that is her second year, but I think in a different floor, different set of people, roommates, but she was in that dorm the prior year too, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Should we fill the chair? Should we let her tell her path?
I don't know. Let's bring her in. She's like probably controlling the dog right now. So
That's all right. It's all right. If the dog barks, it's totally good.
Hi,
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay.
it's a two
Yeah,
for
It is. It's a twofer. Dave and Jamie, relax. All right. This is, you are a married couple, but this is a legitimate married
That
couple.
was my inspiration, actually. I said, wow, that worked like frickin' frack.
So Elizabeth, for you, like where are you from originally?
I actually grew up about 20 minutes away from campus. So I was technically a townie, but I
Okay.
lived on campus.
In what town? What's the town?
Shenango Bridge.
Okay.
So
But essentially, 'cause I don't know if you heard what Scott was saying before, but like he's thinking, I don't want to go to Albany, it's 10 minutes away. Is that ever a concern for you of like going to Binghamton?
no,
or-
I didn't. I actually didn't want to go to Binghamton. And growing up there, you don't realize how great of a school it is. Kind of just
Right.
seems like a bad plan. And my parents are like, no, you got to apply. You got to apply. I'm like, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And then I did a 2-week study abroad in France my senior year, and I was so homesick. I was like, I absolutely can't be that far away from
Interesting.
my parents. So yeah, so that's how I ended up there.
I'm trying to think, was there a possibility for you then to have lived at home and just
Oh
commuted?
yeah. But my mom was like, you're absolutely no.
No, that's good. Good on your mom. Yeah, you got to have that college experience. That's
Yeah.
She came home to do her laundry and
My
grocery
mom,
shop.
yeah. My mom would bring me groceries. She'd do my laundry.
Yeah,
Back
that's
home.
awesome. All right, so Scott or Elizabeth, tell like when do you first meet? Like how does that come to pass? Like is it on the floor? Is it like how does
No,
now we've got three. Now we're really in New York.
yeah, this is welcome to my life. This is Archie. So in my memory, I had to ask Elizabeth the other night, I'm like, how did we meet?
Yeah.
So apparently, we kind of knew each other through the just social scenes out at parties and whatnot. And Elizabeth will say that we actually initially kind of were introduced at the Henry Street house and just infidels at a party randomly.
Right.
And we kind of had some mutual friends, from there.
Mhm.
And that started growing. And then by the time we came back to school, I guess our sophomore year, beginning of sophomore year, that's when we we started officially going out, I guess.
Yeah, like after, yeah, it was like November, but yeah, we started hanging out a lot more because we were in the dorm together. We
Are
lived in,
you?
we
Yeah,
did
go.
Lehman.
Oh, Hughes, okay.
We
Sorry.
lived in Hughes. I lived in Lehman my first year and then we were in Hughes. But similar.
This is
like,
why we need Elizabeth here. Elizabeth's going to keep this all in line, Scott.
She's
Every
like,
time you go left, she's going to pull you back right when you're.
she's fact checked every one of these interviews and like, you know, so yeah. She's like, that's not
Yeah, I don't, because my wife knows a lot of these guys, because we've been together for a long time, but at the same time, not as far back as you do. So there are times I have gotten a lot wrong on this. So I have no doubt, with that. Okay, so now, Scott, you're heading towards rush of the second semester, and you too, Elizabeth, are about to do the same thing. But is it on, I guess, is this a conversation? Like, is it, we're both going to kind of go this route? Is that something as a couple that you're both kind of
I think we did have I do remember having some conversations. I think we were kind of like, it's all or nothing. Like, we're either going to both do it or we're both not going to do it, because
right?
the relationship probably wouldn't have survived if one went one way and one went the other. Right?
I guess if she says so. I don't remember having a conversation specifically, but I know that both of us, we kind of were teased by the Greek life element of things, and we had friends that, we certainly had friends in the building, and we knew, a lot of guys and girls who were doing it at the time. So, for me, it was pretty much Chi-Fi or nothing because of the guys that I had started becoming friendly with.
Okay.
For her, it was a lot different, I think, because, sororities didn't recruit from Hinman at all, really, at that time.
Okay.
So, for me, I think it was a little bit more of a sure thing. I don't know if she even thought, she knew she was going to get a bid, because.
Yeah, it's a totally different process.
I was going to say, tell me about it. Like, 'cause I have no concept of, obviously, what that's like. Like, what's that experience like?
So it's they call it formal rush, and you have to rush all the sororities. You don't get to pick and choose. Like, you guys could pick which smokers you wanted to go to or whatever. We had to go to all of them. And so at that time there were 6 sororities.
Okay.
Campus. And it was like one weekend you went to, they called them parties, but they weren't fun. There was no party element. You were basically just talking to people all day in like 2-hour segments. And you'd go to all the sororities. You went twice, and then the sororities would sit down that night and they would decide who they were going to invite back. So they had a quota that they were going to work down to at the end. So based on however many girls go to rush, then that's what sets the quota, and then that's all they're allowed to take. So like A5 can't take 50 girls if somebody else can, you know what I mean? Like, it has to kind of be.
That's interesting. Wow, that's so different.
So then you go through, there's 4 rounds of that, and you just keep whittling it down. And I being on both sides of it, I mean, it's like obviously like gut wrenching when you're like the girl that's going through it. Am I going to get a bid? I really think I connected with those people. And then you find out that you didn't. But then also like to sit in the room and have to be like going through that process of deciding like, we really like this girl, but we can't take everybody. So yeah, so it was like,
but it's like The Bachelor. Like, it's like, who's gonna get a rose?
It was. So it all kind of like, I mean, okay.
No, it's great. It's so that's such a because obviously, right, at Binghamton, Scott, for fraternities, you have tiny fraternities who are trying to grow. You have a fraternity like Chi-Phi, who a year prior is almost out of business.
Right.
And if the structure is like what Elizabeth is saying, then you never die, right? Because their quota would have allowed them to get the guys back that they needed. But every fraternity kind of had its own look, probably with the exception of ours, because it was such a very much like a melting pot of different types of looking people versus some of the other ones.
100%.
Who did you know? Like you said, like the guys that like who kind of, I don't want to say necessarily maybe recruited you, but who attracted you to Chi-Phi?
Yeah, so I was living in the same dorm with Favor and with Slouch. So they definitely had their, we were friends, and they never put pressure on me or whatever to do anything, but they would include me in things, which was cool. So from there too, I was able to meet like Skedio and Brent and the CIW guys. During I guess that fall sophomore year, the Omicron class was pledging,
Yep.
and Dave and like Stanley and Poopy, Leif,
Casey.
and Casey, they were
Yeah.
all very friendly with Elizabeth and her roommate Nikki Yancey.
Okay.
So I mean, they seemed like they were over there every day. I saw them, I saw what they were doing, we became friends. So it was kind of like a whole surrogate thing. Like I really got a good sense of the type of guys who were not only in the fraternity but were also pledging. And like you said, everyone is so very different, and I thought that was really unique. And everyone was really easy to get along with, and it was kind of what pushed me towards I guess making that jump.
Yeah, and when you make the jump, do you know any of those guys in the Pi class on that first night?
The only one that I knew vaguely was Fenster, Nick Bastidas.
Okay.
He was, I think and she'll correct me, but he was dating another one of Elizabeth's roommates. I mean, they were running a whorehouse over there. I don't know. I think everyone was with somebody. But so yeah, Nick and Laura, I believe, were going out, and then obviously Elizabeth and I were going out. So I knew Fenster, but the other guys I had never met before. I think
Okay.
Tom.
I knew Tom. I knew who Tom was, but
Right.
we had never had cross paths. We never lived together. And again, being in Hinman, you were kind of like
You're on the outskirts of it a little bit.
second class citizen. So,
But now wait, for you, Liz, I'm curious, like, because if it's kind of dwindling down, are you getting to know those other girls who are eventually going to be a part of your pledge class then? Are you in like the
I mean,
same
not
kind of
really unless you have, because they set you up in little groups and things like that. So you're traveling in packs. That it's a completely different situation.
How many girls were in your pledge class?
27.
27?
Yeah, the quota was 28. One girl didn't ever come, so she liked to pledge before we started, and the other 27 we all stuck with it.
It's
Wow.
just different. I mean, the fraternity life is, there sorority seem like well-oiled machines where we're like, trying to just survive. But
Well, and obviously I want to pull some stuff out of you from pledging, but I'm just curious, comparatively speaking, like who had the rougher go of it?
It depends on what angle you're going for. I think
Who was all right, I'll take a different, who was more sleep deprived?
I think I was. I do. I think I was. You guys were doing a lot more. You were doing physical stuff.
yeah.
Like we didn't do physical things.
More
but
mental?
It was all mental. It was all sleep deprivation. It was all like just mind screw.
I also I think I mentioned before that the semester I pledged, I think I took 2.5 classes on purpose. And it was very scheduled out, kind of what, like, I don't know if Ponyboy said it or whatever, but so the sleep thing wasn't as big of a deal for me because my day didn't start till 2 o'clock anyway, most days.
Right.
So even if we got back later, I was tired, I could just, I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, for me, it was definitely more physical, for sure, which was fine. I didn't mind it at all. I mean, I thought it was, I thought that's what it was supposed to be about, like just kind of getting the discipline and going through the same experiences as, that the brothers had to kind of share that bond. So,
Sure.
but it was physical, and to the point where after I got in that summer or whatever, I actually had to go to the doctor. I had a sports hernia as a result of
Jesus.
you guys beating me up a bit, which was fine. But yeah, it just shows you that it was a lot of physical stuff. But
Hold on, I never would have lasted in a sorority, by the way. That part that you're describing, Liz. But Liz, I think Scott and Tom were the drivers. for his pledge class because they were older. Is that correct, Scott? Was you and
Yeah,
Tom?
so Tom and I both had a car. He had, I think, I don't know, he had a white car. I'm not sure.
Good
And
car,
I
a truck. I feel like one of you guys had a truck.
I
Am I
don't.
wrong? You guys both have cars?
I had a car. I had a little red Geostorm. It literally fit like 4.5 people, maybe 3 adults and 2 midgets. I mean, it didn't have any room at all. I also had like a huge like box speaker in my trunk, of course.
Right.
So, and we started with 13 guys, right? So we had 11 that crossed and 13 that started. So for a while, at least until the 2 dropped, we had 13 guys in 2 cars.
Jesus.
So it was very untenable. And I think Danny told the story that after one of the breaks, he ended up bringing his car up as well to kind of take a little pressure off of that situation. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, we were literally, I mean, we had to have like six guys in a little car and 7 in another, to do all these things. And
Yeah, that's
it,
so
it
much different. It's so much different than it would be today. Like you wouldn't.
oh,
I just don't
for
think. But hold on, Liz. Like, do you guys do off campus stuff? Does this
Yeah, we
you need
did.
drivers?
So in our class, I think there were 5 of us maybe that were sophomores.
Okay.
But we don't have cars. A lot of times they would call us, the sisters would call us and call us out. So we'd have to go outside with the blindfold and you'd get in the car and they would blindfold you and you
With
didn't.
them. Amazing. I'm gonna keep going back and forth between you two because I'm so curious about the sorority life. What do you remember from pledging, Scott? Like, is there a standout moment or a memory or anything? I have a lot of memories of you guys.
Yeah, so many. I mean, like I said, it was just getting to know all the guys. I mean, you've said it over and over, and it's true. We had like a really one of a kind kind of pledge class. I think we were the right group of guys at the right time under the right situation. There were athletes and there were, guys who were, good looking guys and sporty guys and smart guys, and there's a lot of different things going on. So we all kind of clicked, and I was from upstate, Avinash was from upstate, Millhouse was from upstate, Beaker was from upstate, Jalen or DeFrias was from upstate, and then you had a couple Long Island guys, Penguin was from New City. So it's just like geographically diverse, background diverse, ethnicity diverse. I mean, Talk was amazing. Splinter, who Jay Lamb, who I was really kind of close with for a while. So it was just a good group of guys. And as I look back and I've been listening to like everyone talk again, I think it was Danny who said it. We kind of think alike, but for me, even though I was older, I looking back, I really felt that you guys knew what you were doing more so than you knew what you were doing in terms of like. You were never going to put us in serious danger. You're never going to kick us too hard. Where, I mean, honestly, you guys didn't know like what the limits were or how things were going to play out.
Right.
Maybe I was just being naive, probably, but so it was interesting. We never knew what the night had to hold, right? So whenever you were, what were we doing? Where were we going, and how would we survive? So a lot of good memories. The road trips were fun. Elizabeth dug up a bunch of pictures of us getting our boxer shorts signed and borrowing signs and stuff like that from other places. The serenading, the pop-offs, the dining hall hours, the study hours, the history lessons.
I'm going to guess, and I don't remember, but your pop off must have been something to the effect of like I'm for, as far as like, did you have to do
I think it was lives like a box of chocolates or something like that.
That's right.
I think so, but it
Yep,
was
that sounds
probably
about right.
either one. But yeah, I mean, it was tough, and it wasn't all fun, but it definitely brought everyone like together. It really, I mean, it just kind of worked out in the best way possible, I think.
Yeah, well, I've joked on a lot of these, Scott, but it's really not a joke that I was going through such ups and downs with my girlfriend at the time that I loved having those 2 classes because you guys had no choice but to hang out with us. So sometimes like the Omicron class, I just like hang out with them and they kind of he's part of it. Like, why is he still here? Like, we got to be nice to him, right? Like, he's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
charge of this.
That was a little weird for me too. As a sophomore, and Tom as well. I am not a freshman. I'm actually older than probably all the Zis other than yourself and Putz probably at the time. So I mean, I wasn't. It did take a little bit of tongue biting at times to not just
Yeah,
push back. Um, but you learn what you can do, who you can push, who you can joke around with a little bit.
right.
But it was all good. It was all good.
Liz, with 27 girls doing this, are you
Mhm.
bonding with all these people? Like, is that possible in that kind of a time frame? Is it structured in a way where you're going to get to know each other that well?
I mean, we did. We definitely did. I mean, we were together all the time, and I was in Newing all the time. I think that's part of the reason why I was so sleep deprived. Like, I was commuting to and from Newing
Right.
every week at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely had like a core group of friends, and honestly, they were people that were more like me. They were two girls in CIW, the sophomores, things like that. Those were the people that I was connecting with more.
Right.
And the girls that all lived in the same, like on the same two floors in Newing, that had
Okay.
all been rushed, and everyone, and they knew that they were going to be in that sorority.
Dirty rushed.
Yeah, dirty rush.
Is it fun? Like, are you having fun? Are you having a good time, or are you just trying to survive it?
Probably
And
70,
the answer's
30.
no.
Yeah, I was stressed. Because you know what? I was at the same time I was trying to transfer into SOM. I didn't take a light course load. I think I had 17 or 18 credits that semester. I was trying really hard to get through it.
So your boyfriend's just completely, he's well rested, he's shiny every day, he's got no stress in life, and you're just
Yeah, I didn't smell very good, but I
Mm-mm.
mean,
Oh my God, you guys smelled
was
so
it was.
bad.
I think I had a very different pledge experience. Like there were a lot of things I look back at and I really really enjoyed, and I don't know if she had those same experiences, but
do you feel, Scott, do they look to you as a leader in that group because of a little bit of the age? Do you feel like it kind of puts you a little bit at the forefront of that class?
I think so. I mean, myself and Tom, just again because of the age difference, and I mean, I think they looked at us being able to kind of arbitrate with some of the other guys a little bit more, or talk more directly to him. But even within outside of Tom and I, just because of the age and whatnot, but Danny was a big leader. He's just a huge personality, so he can't
Yes.
help himself.
Mhm.
And actually, Beaker was a leader within that group too. I think he was in my mind, he was underrated within that pledge class because he had a lot of heart. He really put
I agree.
everything. He put everything he had into everything. And even if it was not always 100% directed in the right direction, he took it very seriously. So he definitely was part of that leadership core. And then everyone took on roles. Pony was a leader in his own way, a quiet leader. He could just look at you with his dimples and his earring, and like he
Yeah.
didn't have to say
Guitar.
he didn't. Yeah, he would serenade you or whatever. Oshkosh was like a goofy, dude, what's going on, dude, it's just. It was just a weird, not weird, but just a different group of guys who at different times stepped up and kind of made it all work.
Yeah, we were lucky. I don't know. I can't take credit for the recruitment process. It was for our chapter, it was another kind of pivotal point because without a good sized pledge class, we were graduating a lot of people. So
Yeah,
Liz, you're talking about 27 pledges. That must mean, is that a 75 girl sorority? Like how many
Yeah, probably 60,
sisters?
70 girls. But you only took a class once a year.
that's right.
I
They only
see.
touched in the spring.
Yeah. So it's kind of equal, I guess, if you look at it that way.
And do you happen to remember between the two of you which one finished the pledge process first? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I
You
think
so
got in on
like
like a,
30 days.
yeah, you got in on like a Sunday night, and then I think I had to go until like Wednesday maybe, and I was so mad.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Again, you're all clean. You don't smell like crap anymore. You've come
He
off of a
felt
week of
so
smelling like,
bad when he came back that night.
oh yeah.
I saw some pictures last night or yesterday of I don't know, and I don't know who took these pictures because obviously the pies were involved with it, like
Yeah.
doing the crawl and whatnot. But there are pictures of all of us like with, wearing everything that you guys threw at us, and ketchup and mustard and flour and syrup, and I don't even know what else. And there's a picture of, I want to say you guys told us to like start boxing. So we're all in our blindfold and we all look like we haven't eaten in 3 weeks, and we're like going like this and fighting, and I vaguely remember that. But I don't know where these pictures would have come from. Someone took them.
I don't know either. Yeah. Okay. The way you're describing it, it's that scene in Dazed and Confused where all the girls are on the ground and they're making them sizzle like bacon and just pouring everything on them.
Yeah.
Liz, like, what's the worst? What's the worst part of the pledge process for you? Is there the moment?
No, I mean, it was all just kind of the same stuff. It was just like, oh my God, really? It was like line up. We had to line up alphabetically, go down to the basement. I remember it was all just like mind games. Like, here, bring tweezers and you're going to separate all these sprinkles by color into little piles.
Ugh.
Or every girl got a TV guide and you had to go through and circle every A, E, P, H, and I in the TV guide.
Yeah, that's the
kind of stuff.
It sounds terrible. Yeah,
one time a day. Yeah.
Time consuming, right? That's the difference, Scott. All right, for you, Scott, I don't remember. Where do you swing?
I swung second. So it was Jugs swung first, then me, and then I believe
I think
Brian, and then Tom. I think Tom was fourth.
Okay, you guys round out.
I was second. I remember, coming through the other side, and Danny had already, bitten, took his
he'd been knighted at that point.
Yeah, and I just remember he looked at me and he had a huge smile and he gave me a hug, and then it would just hit me like, I'm done.
Yeah, it's over with.
So yeah, I mean, we had, you think about how that works, and there's the magic room in the basement that no one had ever seen before, and it was kind of like, it was a cool type of thing. And then, there were 9 other guys that had to go after me. And it took a while. I mean, I think
Yes.
I don't know who swung last. It was I want to say it was either Millhouse or Avinash, but by the end, it is just like, you're just praying, like, just get it over with. Like, just,
Yes.
kill the horse. Like, let's mercy. It's like Braveheart when he's, mercy.
Yeah, you just want it to be over with.
Yeah.
So that at the end of that semester, so your girlfriend's in a sorority, you're in a fraternity. You don't live too far. I mean, what's the distance from the Albany area to where you are to Binghamton? An hour, 2 hours?
Only 2 hours on the nose. Yeah. So I spent, we spent a lot of time on weekends back and forth. So that was spring of 97. So yeah. I ended up being able to move into the house in fall of 97. So I had been going up there to kind of get my stuff arranged. So Tom and I were able to move into the house with the remaining Zais, and I think that in the Omicrons who were there. So I lived in apartment 4, which was, I lived with Leif for my first year there. That was the huge apartment. He had the big blue couch,
I remember.
Big sectional. It was kind of like where everyone ended up. He always had a movie going.
Yeah.
We always, Full Metal Jacket was on every other day. It was just like where everyone just came and did whatever they had to do. He had his pet snake.
I remember that snake's been in they had a lot of photographs of people with
which wasn't my favorite, but so that was the freshman year of, I'm sorry, the first semester junior year was
first semester junior. And and again for you, Elizabeth, you're a first semester junior at that point too. So you guys are tracking the same. What do your parents think about this guy the first time you bring him home?
They loved him.
Yeah.
Yep.
where are you in your family? Are you an only? Do you have siblings? Kind
I
of.
have two sisters. I have a sister who's 2 years younger than me and a sister who's 9 years younger than me.
Oh, so you're both the oldest of three.
Yes.
Yeah. Oldest of three. And yeah, so.
Do you
Yeah.
think? I mean, I don't know. For a junior guy in college, I just think I don't know. I mean, and maybe you guys will tell me a different story, but do you? I guess for you, Elizabeth, like as the years are going on, those college years, does it feel like, all right, this, this might be it. Like this might be the guy. Like this might be where
Oh
we're
God.
going. Like, is it a serious? No, I don't mean it that way, Scott. I just mean like, is it? I don't know for you prior to Elizabeth, how many serious relationships that you had. My first serious relationship was in college, so I didn't handle it well when it didn't end, but I didn't realize that I needed to learn from it, right? Like I needed to have some relationships.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it would have sustained itself, but here we are, 2024. Like something's worked. Like clearly it all worked out. So
Yeah. No, I was hopeful, but I mean, I had no perspective.
got it.
Yeah, I don't think at that point, at least for me, I was definitely wasn't thinking that far down the road. It was just, it was where we were, what we were doing at the time. And, I think it just took on its own life form
Sure.
from there.
So I know at some point, Scott, that you do become president of the fraternity, but for you, Elizabeth, like, are you ever like, do you
I
take
was
on
on
a larger role in your sorority?
I was on the e-board. I was like the Panhell rep. It was kind of like low pressure, but got to sit on the e-board and have a voice and all of that. But it was, I definitely didn't have the same level of involvement in
Okay.
Chi that any of you guys had in Chi Phi, honestly.
Yeah.
We didn't have a house.
Now, I
We
was just
didn't,
going to ask that question. I was gonna, like, I was where were you living?
I lived at Riverside Drive in an apartment. It was a six girls in the apartment.
Okay.
So there was like one set our junior year, and then it kind of like a couple people moved out and a couple people moved in. So my senior year, one of my pledge sisters lived with us, and actually my big sister lived with us for a semester because she was finishing up her degree when somebody else was abroad. But nobody else was affiliated.
Got it. And Scott, Danny talked a little bit about, or maybe it wasn't Danny. Some of the guys have talked about how Chi Phi didn't have a great presence with sororities in terms of, not that we had a bad reputation, but we weren't doing those get-togethers, right? They weren't having, but did that help? Like, did you having this direct link, did that play?
For sure. And not just me, but a couple other guys started, dating and as, we had, at Penguin and Newing and people, we just became more visible and a little bit more, out there. And then Danny with the sports teams as well. So yeah, I think we started, becoming more known on campus for sure, not just amongst, dudes, but through, the girl scene and the sorority scene and the sports club scene. And then, our house and still is, it was such a huge marketing and like selling point of who we were, right? So having those parties and people coming and having a good time and seeing everyone relax and just kind of being in their own element, it catches on, because there were definitely parties you went to that, they had something to drink and some music, but it was not like, it wasn't fun. I mean, I think when you went to a Chi Phi party, the music was always seemed better, the beer was colder, the ice block was,
Yeah.
just,
Like you said, if it was more functional, it was more organized too.
I mean, it seemed like it. I don't know if it really was, but at least it seemed like it to us, right?
Yeah. Now, I'm trying to think, when you get into the fraternity at that point, is Andrew, I'm trying to figure out what is the life cycle. You can answer this for me. Like, when do you become, so it's Jeff, it's Andrew, and then I think it's you, right? I'm not missing somebody in between.
Yeah. So that's the lineage, so to speak. So I think probably fall of 97, we had elections were in the fall, and then the new e-board took hold in the spring of the fall.
Spring. Got it.
So I ran for president in fall of that year. I think I ran against Beaker. I think that was the only other guy who ran. I remember we had to give a little speech, and I mean, I don't know why should I be president? I don't know, because you guys think I should. I mean, sure. But yeah, so that worked out, and yeah, so we had, and it was myself and Danny was the vice president. We had a good e-board. Skedia was on that e-board, Tom, Jamie.
Yeah, I saw the picture that you sent me today because I don't know if Danny realized that he was the vice president. I'm not sure if he even mentioned it in this podcast, if he'd completely forgotten that he was the vice president. So
yeah, he was for sure. I mean, he did everything. So I don't know if one hat really fit him, right? So
right.
But yeah, we had a really good, strong e-board. And a lot of different things were going on at that time. As I know Slouch talked about it, and Jamie talked about it, and even Penguin talked about it from his seat from being the treasurer. We had a lot of issues with National for a variety of reasons, but primarily because of our debt and what we owed, and so on and so forth. So the e-boards prior, started at least acknowledging it's something we have to like get under control, or we're not going to be a national fraternity anymore. So they started with the groundwork of trying to, really get dues coming in and making sure that we were, running our business, because basically it was like running a business, right? You have a finance arm, you have a marketing and recruiting arm, you have a lot of different moving parts. So
it's funny, you don't realize it at the time, but when you reflect back on it, you realize it's structurally the same thing.
It is, right? So you're marketing, you're recruiting, you're developing products and ideas and innovating and doing all this other stuff to stand out from your competition, I guess. But so that was a big thing for us. And I don't remember for sure, and I think there's been a couple different versions of ultimately what happened, but I'm pretty sure that during our tenure as an e-board, I don't know if we got out of debt during that year, but at the minimum we set up a program and we got out of jail. We weren't on like super probation anymore. And I remember, I think Jamie, he had printed out this like document that at one time hung on the wall that all the e-board signed, basically saying it was a letter to National with like the remittance of like whatever debt we still owed, saying like we're free and clear. And it was, for us, it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But again, how did we get the money? It was parties. We were able to be smart about that, and some crazy fundraising.
It's the only other way you can do it.
Yeah.
Did you face similar things, Liz? Like, does your sorority have to deal with anything like it's more staff? Is it a national as well?
Yeah, it's national. Yeah, no, we didn't have any financial issues. We had more issues with like pledging. So that spring of '98, I guess it was, all the sororities on campus were getting in trouble. Everyone was getting blown up. Parents were calling nationals for multiple sororities and saying, you better let our girls in. And so there was a big push to get everybody in. They didn't finish the whole pledge program.
Okay.
So that happened.
It's so different. It's so different. Is Chi Phi for you? I mean, your boyfriend's in it, but is it I'm trying to think about how to phrase it, right? Like, is it just a more known fraternity? Because it's not, when I'm leaving, it's just sort of on the periphery. Like, are you able to kind of take a step back and go, yeah, you guys are definitely kind of finding your rhythm?
Definitely making progress, for sure. I mean, I think when we started pledging, it was very different than even like a year later. I think that there was a lot more visibility and people, we saw pictures. I was showing him pictures last night, like, I'm like, oh, look, here's an 85 mixer, like at the house. And
there just was a lot of momentum.
Definitely.
We had a good momentum built from, the older guys who kind of, went all in. And then, you need hard work and you need a little bit of luck. And I think we had both, and the timing was worked out well. And again, we just had like, we all, we didn't, I don't think I knew it at the time, but we all wanted to make sure or do whatever we could to leave it in good hands, that there would be something to come back to. I
Right.
felt the responsibility to do that, right? So I think we were, recruiting was huge. We had to make sure we were replacing our numbers and then some for every pledge class. Making sure that we have a balance of, socially involved people with athletics and different backgrounds, and keep that kind of moving along. So yeah, so it was a bunch of different things that all happened at the same time, but
Yeah,
they're
and
all
then listen, every 6 to 8 weeks, you had to deal with all these graduates coming up to invade your house who couldn't let go of college because they had no lives and didn't want to work, and they would just come up and take over the house for a weekend.
no, but I mean, again, those were the best weekends. I mean, literally, and I mean, we all knew you guys at that time. It wasn't like, 25 different classes coming back. It was like 3 or 4 classes of really, guys you really knew. And we're excited to hear about, what's next. How is
Yes.
living in the city? How is having a job? And, how was Europe? Or, just kind of
Right.
understanding what's in store for all of us next. And also social networking, like, hey, can you get me a job? Or what, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, it was always great. So typically it was, I think Halloween sometimes would turn into a little bit of an alumni weekend, and certainly for, St. Patrick's Day for
Yes.
nights.
Professionally for you both, like as students, like so Elizabeth, you end up in the school management. So you said you're both in school management. What is that pointing you both towards? Like Scott, where are you? Like what's the potential career path? And I guess Elizabeth, same question for you.
Mine was just to get a paycheck. I didn't really have anything I was overly passionate about. I mean, my ideal job coming out of college would have been something like sports management, or working for a team. I actually had an internship when I was in Binghamton. I interned for the hockey team at
Okay.
the arena for a semester, which was fun. But Binghamton, they're not recruiting sports marketing guys from Binghamton. You have to go to a big D1
Right.
Syracuse or something like that.
Right.
So I end up interviewing, I think, when they come on campus and whatnot, interviewing with a couple places, but I end up getting a job with Lord and Taylor.
That's right. Caroline, which Sean Caroline's at Lord and Taylor at the time, right?
Sean got the job at the same time I got the job. Uh-huh. So that was my senior year first semester. So senior year first semester, I had my job offer in my hand already.
Amazing.
For I think it was $38,000, like
Amazing.
big money.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and $5,000 signing bonus, and I was moving to New York, so it was great. I mean, I knew school was almost done. I only needed a couple more classes. I had my job nailed down. I knew what I was going to be able to do. I didn't know what I was doing, but at least I knew I had a job.
Right.
So yeah, things were like laid up pretty pretty well for me. I kind of stepped in it.
Yeah. What about for you, Liz? What's
I also went to Lord and Taylor.
okay? I think I know this, by the way. It's just been a long time since I've heard it, but yeah.
So Sean started in June, Scott started in September, and then I started in February. So we were all there.
Yeah, she didn't get the
That's
job
incredible.
originally. She had to go back and try again, but yeah, so she followed the same path
Yeah.
into the buying program. And actually, Jay Lamb actually got a job at Lord and Taylor the year after. So there was like a whole funnel of Kai
Good
Fi
Lord. Yeah.
at Lord and Taylor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, or what it really meant, but I'm in the same industry still, how many years later, doing different things. And Elizabeth is as well. So, I mean,
Got it.
it arguably it worked out, as
Yeah.
well. So
Perfect. All right, that's from the Chi-Fi Chronicles. Thanks, Scott and Elizabeth. No, we got to backtrack a little bit. Well, something you said, Elizabeth, and I think it really rings true with me. And the more I do these, the more I realize if I have a regret, it's that I did not take more advantage of SUNY Binghamton than I did, because there
Yeah.
was a tremendous amount of opportunity there, and there was a real network, and there were people in fields. And even though, Scott, for you, yes, you probably had maybe a bigger pool of us to talk to and bounce ideas off of, there were some alumni for us that we could have, that I
Yeah.
could have, even thinking back on that, reached out to a little bit. I was telling my son today that one of my regrets was I kind of jumped to grad school so quick, because I kind of panicked for a second. I'm like, I don't know if there's work out there, like, and I definitely could have, like, it just would have been a little bit more marketing and talking to more people, but jumped the gun a little bit too early. What are, I guess, comfort level, what are your highlights of those last few years of college in Binghamton with the fraternity? Like, who are your closest buddies? Who's coming in that you're befriending? You've got a big role, so you have to be responsible as the president of the fraternity. Like, what's happening?
you had to be responsible, yeah. So I mean, it's been said, but I mean, we all got along. All of us were friends. I mean, I gravitated to everyone, but I spent a lot of time on the first floor. Tom was on the first floor. So after I lived with Leif, I moved out of Leif's apartment and I moved into apartment number 1, which was like
The
right
new
on.
ones, when they made that extra, did they create that space? No.
No, not the new ones. It was like the first one up the stairs. I think it was Joe Cashwell's room.
Yes, I know. Yep, that's right. Yep.
And I know that because when I moved in, like he had like this heat lamp in the bathroom. I think for his tanning. I think I don't know,
Yeah, that
but
tracks. Yeah.
yeah, he left it for me. I didn't really use it. So I'm in apartment 1. Tom and Sean are in the new section of the house on the other side. So we hung out a lot. Stanley's across the hall. Slouch is in apartment 3, and we spent a lot of time together as well. So, and then Favor was all the way up top. Skedia was right above me. I mean, everyone in the house just like it was an open door. I mean, everyone just found their way around, and just kind of hung out together. But definitely over that time period, and then immediately leaving school, I would definitely say Tom, Skedio, Favor, Spider, and Baca would probably be the guys I kind of gravitated towards after school or after college more so. And Jughead too, but Jughead, he was traveling down to North Carolina and Miami. He wasn't in, the tri-state as much, but so yeah, we kind of did, I think coalesce the most during those years and then shortly after. But even my younger pies with Jugs and Pony, the Floral House, they had over on Floral. We were over there a lot. So yeah, I mean, it was everybody. It really was. Casey, I mean, and what's great is as these things come, we catch up and talk. You just pick up with where you left off. Someone I haven't talked to in 20 years. You start quoting, lines from Airplane, and we just like that. We're just back on it. So
I'm sure your wife can appreciate this too. Like, when you're in such a concentrated space, and like you're saying, Elizabeth, we're doing the same things repetitively over and over, these mundane tasks of hours upon hours. At what other part in your life are you spending time like that outside of maybe your spouse, in the future? You really don't. And even then, when you're married, you're both going to work, you're doing your own thing and everything, but pledging a sorority or fraternity is such concentrated time. And you were definitely ever present in this, Elizabeth. Like, I do remember alumni weekend events, and like, are you maintaining, like, do you have a similar kind of experience of like a group of girls really befriend? No, it's different.
No. Like I said, I have, my one pledge sister that I ended up living with senior year, she and I are still friends. But I really, it's nothing like this. What you guys have is like so special.
She's jealous.
I'm jealous.
No, but I think, you're bonded to a lot of those guys as well, because I know, and I'm gonna skip ahead, but there were, I think weren't you a part of that Hamptons crew at some point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, but
Yeah.
so there, but as a result of it, you guys have been together for a long time, but now the guys that you've gotten to know really well,
Oh,
because
yeah.
these two, right, Elizabeth, they're meeting
Some of
girls,
them no longer than him.
and their wives are becoming, their girlfriends who become wives become your friends, and you
Mhm.
develop like this mini
Yeah.
community
Yeah.
amongst each other. So do you both, if you both end up at Lord and Taylor, well, actually, before I go there, is there anything else? Did I miss anything? I think we hit the key pieces of pledging and fraternity stuff. Did I miss anything before I jump into your professional lives?
Yeah, no, I mean the only other like third rail, my whole incident with the Binghamton
The
Police
street
Department
Oh God.
need go on record with it. The story for those who don't know, coming back from campus, I don't know who I was with. It was I think it was a Wednesday or Thursday evening, Friday, whatever. And I think I guess it was the Sigmas were in the party room spray painting t-shirts for Kegs and Eggs.
Okay.
So they had the party room door open to let the fumes out. And this was around the time, I don't know if anyone remembers anymore, but there was a big thing nationally going around with people stealing stop signs and stuff from intersections and causing accidents. People just driving into each other and causing and stuff like that. And our party room was chock full of memorabilia and signs from all over the place. So anyway, long story short,
Yeah, that kleptomaniac Milano, like Danny's got a problem.
yeah, I mean there were signs in there from New York City parks. I remember I think
Holy
Keaton got
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I mean there was Henry Street sign. I mean there was everything. It was cool. I mean it was part of the atmosphere. But anyway, cops poked their head in to see what was going on, saw all the signs. Pledges were in there. So anyway, I pull in, get out of my car, and the police officer says, I don't know to who, just more generally says, who's in charge? And everyone looks around and everyone just points at me.
Right.
And I'm literally getting out of my car, I have my backpack and like Burger King or something that I just picked up. And basically, long story short, is I didn't get arrested. I got an appearance ticket to go to court
Okay.
on behalf of the house and the fraternity, to speak towards and to be charged with possession of stolen property.
Right.
Which, at that point, I'm 21 years old. I'm starting the job hunt. I'm like,
Yeah, your life's in front of you. Absolutely.
yeah. So, I mean, and it's crazy. I was thinking as we led up to this, I mean, we were always worried about the police as a group, parties and we were doing lots of things that we knew we shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
To the extent, and I still find this funny today, we used to call the cops before parties. We used to let them know that we were having a party, and if there were any problems, just let us know and we'll take care of it ourselves. So, I mean, how naive, stupid were we? We're basically
Such a responsible group of young men.
like, hi, yes, so, but it made sense at the time. So anyway, so fraternity hires a lawyer, we go to court, and get it cleared or whatever. So the long-term effect was just, a lot of scarring for me because it was a pretty heavy thing to go through. But we also had to clamp down on our parties for a little while. And it was right ahead of, I think, Kegs and Eggs because they were making those t-shirts. And I want to say that we turned Kegs and Eggs into more of a lock-in situation that year.
Okay.
Because of the fear of everything that happened. And then for that time shortly after too, I think a lot of our parties, I remember having parties and mixtures like upstairs and not in the party room. To kind of like, lay a little bit lower and just try to figure out like what we would do from here. But ultimately it all eventually worked itself through. But yeah, that was the only part that I know has.
Like you said, dude, you're 21 years old. You're got a career in front of you. Like you can't be getting a record for something like this or
And something that like was like I didn't even, there were my signs.
They weren't even
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, it was what it was, and it kind of, gave me whatever formidable experiences that I've carried through from here. And I think it was a learning experience for everybody. I mean, I think we all took at that point, like, oh wow,
Right.
these things have ramifications. We have to be a little more,
Yeah,
smarter about at
absolutely.
least for a little while, and then we forget about it and move on. But uh,
Right.
so yeah,
You know,
but
it's so funny hearing you tell this story. This has no connection to the fraternity. When I was a senior in high school, I grew up in Rockland, not far from where Rob Goldblatt's from. We did a scavenger hunt. It was a big thing for the town. Like you do a scavenger hunt, and somebody ran off the scavenger hunt list copies in the high school, like one of the counselor's office when nobody was there. But they made one fatal error. They left the original copy on the
underneath
printer.
the thing, yeah.
On the printer. So at the end of that night, when we converged on the place where we were going to meet, we were greeted by a lot of police cars, and
Oh,
we were all brought in. We weren't arrested, like you said. No one was quote unquote arrested, but we were all and we're scared to death because we're 16 years old.
yeah.
And at one point, this cop, I never forget it. Like the cop was so angry. He's like, "Who wants to own this?" And he holds up a license plate of a handicapped New York City detective.
Oh God.
And he's like, "Which one of you POSs?" And this one kid raises his hand. He's a kid I grew up with. And he's like, "You want to explain yourself?" He's like, "Yeah, it's my dad's." He's like, "Jesus Christ."
Oh, wow.
And yeah, we got, like you said, like it left a mark because I never wanted to be, and I didn't have a car at the time, so I had to call my parents who thought I was home asleep, and wake them up and be like, "Can you come get
Having
me?"
that conversation with my parents afterwards was definitely tricky, but it all worked out. I mean, we definitely had to quiet things down for a little bit, which
Sure.
again, it like played into like we're just starting to come out of debt, and now we can't hold parties, and
Right.
now and parties are recruitment. So how are
Yes.
we going to sustain this? So it was a real like obstacle, not only just personally, but like just so yeah, a lot of different things happen, but
Well, I'm
ultimately,
sure, Scott, it's a tug and pull because, like you said, there's probably a faction of the fraternity that says we have to do this because we have to make money. There's another probably faction of guys who are newer to the fraternity who are like, I want to have parties. Like I didn't join this thing just to hang out with you guys in rooms upstairs, right? And then there's you who is like, yeah, and I'm not going to prison for all you freaking guys. Like, no, like we've got to be smart.
yeah, and it's so true, and like as you say that, I'm starting to remember like some of those conversations that were being had,
I
and
can imagine.
with some guys, and I don't blame them, but they're like, dude, who the fuck cares, like I remember, I don't remember who, but they said if someone comes, I'll say I'm president, and I'll take the hit for it, and it great on paper, nice words to say, but when push
Yeah.
to shove, so yeah, it was like some internal strife and reckoning, and I remember spending a lot of time with like Danny and Tom talking through what are we going to do, how do we do this,
Right.
um, but ultimately,
You
it
came out clean. Yeah, you made it through on the
worked
other side.
out. It worked out, but
Who
it's
who succeeds you? Who follows you? Is it maybe
so Mandanici, CB, he
yeah.
was the next one up after me.
Okay.
So I give him props for that because he saw probably, how bad it could be, and he still wanted to do it.
Right.
And he did a great job to keep it going too. So
Okay. All right. So let's move ahead. So you both end up at Lord and Taylor, but what does that mean for your lives? Like, do you get an apartment together? Do you move in together at that point? Are you living with friends in different places? Like, what happens, Elizabeth, at graduation or Scott? Yeah. What happens at that point?
so I so we're both from upstate, and then
Right.
we ended up both moving down to Hoboken, but separately. So I live with Snapper with Sean Carolyn in Hoboken on Fifth and Grand, and then she moved in with some of her
Some
high
girls
school
from-
friends
no,
or
girls from
college
high school.
friends. Sorry, uptown in Hoboken. So
Okay.
yeah, so Sean and I got the same job out of school. And he started work, as Liz said, earlier than me. So I think he was living in his like cousin's apartment in the city for a little while.
Yeah.
And by the time I started, I actually remember I took a Greyhound bus down from Albany to New York City, showed up in Hoboken, and went to a realtor and said, I need an apartment. And it was so naive at the time, but we ended up getting a pretty decent spot, a 2-bedroom
Yeah.
in like Midtown, and it turned into kind of a home base because you had the guys were still in Long Island. You had guys in the city. You still had some guys who are out of state too. But I feel like you know, we kind of made that apartment like, you know, our home base for the next year and a half or so for hanging out.
You're describing yourself coming on the bus. I'm like imagining the beginning of the Guns N' Roses "Welcome to the Jungle" video,
It
and the kid just like
was
literally
like
with the
that.
suitcase and drops it, is looking around,
You know,
all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, like
I'm
ready to take it off.
some hick from upstate New York, and you know, I'm
Yeah.
like, one ticket, please, you know. But it worked out. I mean, it worked out. So I lived with Snapper for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I'm not sure if it was full 2 years or not. I don't remember anymore. But and he ended up changing jobs. And
Right.
so we were kind of starting to go in different directions from that point of view. Then I got my own place in Hoboken, and eventually Elizabeth moved in with me. And then
We got engaged.
we got engaged. In
What
20
year is that, Elizabeth? What year do you guys get engaged?
Thank you for asking her. Yes.
September 2002. So you moved, I think you moved in like the summer and then we got engaged.
We got engaged, and you know, funny story. Tom and I both use the same jeweler. I remember that today. Up
I
in
remember
Binghamton.
that today too, isn't
Yeah.
that funny?
Which I don't know how that worked out, but so yeah, we got engaged in September of 2022 and then got married in May of 2024. 2004. Yeah.
04.
Yeah.
And at that point, so I feel like you still have some pretty good links to your college buds, right? Because we're talking about it for a second. There's the Hamptons thing where Tom, I think, meets Beth, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
And
Joe,
Michelle out there.
Joe and Danielle.
Joe and Danielle meet out there.
I don't know if they met out there, but they met during that time.
Right.
right? And you're all kind of but you're in touch with one another. I mean, there's still get-togethers and
yeah, so we had the
dinners.
Hamptons thing going on for 3 years, I think, at least. And that originated with putts. With Sean Flynn, he kind of ended up kind of coalescing that, and it kind of just grew out of control from there. I mean, I think legitimately I think we had a half share in the house that we split into like 16ths or something, because we had one room every other week over the summer, and there were like at least 12 guys in there every week. So
yeah.
it was
I remember Scott coming down on one of the weekends and having such a good time, and probably saying to Jeff, who, you know, seemed to always be kind of like on my hip with a lot of these trips, like, I want to do this every weekend. This is so much fun. And you guys were kind of like, you can't. Like,
yeah,
there's just not enough. Like, we love you guys, but it's like that you can't do that. Like, it's like we'll find another weekend, but it can't be this way. Like that place was jamming always. That pool was crowded. There was always a ton of people.
it was such a cool and perfect setup. You had the pool and you had like the rooms around it. There's a tennis court out back. You know, we were kind of within walking distance of a couple bars. I mean, I had the house for whatever, 3 or maybe it was 4 years. I don't think I went to the beach once.
We did. We went one time. The very first weekend that you ever we went, and it was disgusting out. That was the only time.
Never left. It was just
the house was the hangout place. Yeah, that was where everybody kind of converged.
And we made it work. It was a lot of fun. We'd drive out there, take the train out there on a Friday, and it was just like, you know, it was the Bordy Barn and all those stories those guys have told. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Well, do you, I mean, you guys there's a lot of memories, and I won't go too deep with this one, but do you remember the almost enormous brawl in the living room that day with those guys from Boston?
Yeah, so, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, this wasn't it the night of Mike Musina's near perfect game?
Mm-hmm.
For a guy who doesn't have a good memory, Scott, that's a pretty good pull if that's the case.
Because I distinctly remember, I feel it wasn't it 2001? Was that when it happened?
It's possible.
I thought it was like right before the last weekend of it was Labor Day. I thought it was Labor Day weekend, and it was right before 9/11. That's what I remember of it.
Okay.
I feel like that was, or maybe this was a different time with an all-out brawl with Boston. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I'll skip the reasoning behind it, but for that weekend, I brought my girlfriend, who will eventually become my fiance and wife, and you guys do what you do, which is you go to the boardie barn, and we all follow hand in hand. And we're not boardie barn trained, and I think we all probably overserve ourselves a little bit. You guys have done it a few more times. We get back to the house. Amory passes out on a couch in the middle. Some stuff goes down, and all of a sudden there's a room full of guys screaming at each other, and there's about to be an all-out war in the living room. And I have to do like a T moment to be like, can I just get her out of there because she's snoring in the middle of all of this, passed out drunk before. And thankfully, cooler heads
Yeah.
prevailed, and nothing came of it. But I'm probably like, in hindsight, I'm like, that's why those guys never want us to come back. Like, those guys are
Well,
trouble.
I'm surprised that it didn't happen more. I mean, there were just so many people in and out of there. No one knew really even who had a share at most times, or
Right.
who anyone was. I mean, it could have been a stranger. And yeah, I mean, everyone was just all day boozing in the sun. You know, it was fun. We all, you know, were working. We all had a couple extra dollars in our wallet, and we were having a good time. So.
Right. So where do your lives take you then? So after so you live in your apartment in Hoboken for a bit. Elizabeth moves in with you. What's the next destination after that?
So we got married, and then we bought an apartment in Hoboken, and we owned that for 2 or 3 years, I think. And then we ended up moving out to where we are now in Summit, in New Jersey. So we moved out here before we had kids. So we actually lived in our house for a couple of years before we even had kids. And we were both still working in the city at that time, and the train line from Summit to New York is pretty manageable.
Okay.
So we did that, and then we had kids. We had our daughter in 2008. Yep, 2008.
Yeah. All right. So she's 16.
She'll
She
be
will be,
16. Yeah,
She'll be 16, which makes her a high school sophomore.
she's a sophomore. We're
Okay.
starting, you know, we're starting the whole college thinking about. We have some trips down to actually Virginia and to DC in the next
Okay.
month or so. So we're starting to do that. So she was born in 08, and then my son Jack, our son Jack, was born in 2010. So he is an 8th grader,
Okay.
and he's 13. So 15 and 13, and then we got our dog Archie. He was a COVID dog.
Okay.
So
That's a good thing. A quiet house that can't do much needs an animal. It's a good way to help when you're trapped.
Yeah, 100%. So, but yeah. So then, you know, we've been in this house. We just actually went through a huge renovation of our home in the last year. We were actually out of our house for almost 9 months. So we were moved back in October. Yeah, so
Well, I can't see it obviously, but I like the room that you're in. It was the first thing when you came online. It looks like an office. Is that your office?
yeah, it's our office without any furnishings yet.
That's okay.
But yeah, so it's home. And we've settled in here. We've got a lot of good friends. We've grown up through the school district. You know, Eli Manning lives in town, and there's a lot of cool you know, things within the city. So
Right. Well, you can imagine my wife's throw when I just decided to start throwing pictures of a composite and all this other stuff in there. She's like, "How long is this going to be up there?" I'm like, "I just can't do
it's
it."
good for resale. Yeah, you're gonna
I can't have a bare background if I'm going to host something. I have to have something legitimate. But that was what was funny, because you sent the picture of the composite today to me, and I don't know. I'm not going to turn around and count, but there's probably 5, 10, probably about 25 on that wall behind me. And yours is substantially bigger. Like you can see the growth. You can just see the growth legitimately in pictures of those pledge classes when you guys grew. And it's awesome. And I know all those faces. Like, I got to go up those weekends and meet those guys and see them go from pledges to being a part of the fraternities. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And that was just in 98. 99 was even bigger than that. I still don't know who our mascot was. Merv. I have no idea who Merv was, but
yeah, same.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the composite, I have it right over here. I'm looking at it because I was like, I'm gonna forget people. But yeah, I mean, we're all 20 somethings and not a care in the world.
Well, I guess, but for you and Elizabeth, do you experience a similar thing at some point between those Hoboken years and the Hampton stuff, and then when the kids come along, where all of a sudden there's a quiet of it all, meaning that you're not seeing people, it's months and then it's years and then it's multiple years, or have you found more success with it?
No, I mean, I think in the beginning, when the kids were more portable and they didn't have plans and they didn't have sports and things like that, like we celebrated New Year's Eve together, all of us, for years
Tom's house.
at Tom's house. And then, it just got to be untenable with everybody's kids pulling them in different directions. So, but I will tell you, yesterday I pulled out my composite and I pulled out the Chi-Fi composite. And Catherine was looking at mine and she's like, I don't recognize anybody on here. So like my one friend was studying abroad. She's not even in the composite.
Right.
And then she pulls out yours and she goes, well, she goes, here we go. Like, I know all these guys. So.
Yeah, she was surprised I had hair. I had hair back then. And we all had earrings. Everyone had earrings.
She was
Everyone had,
yeah.
I had 3. It's
with you saying that, Scott, I had one and then I had 2. And I remember when the day I got my 3rd earring, I came back and I looked in the mirror and I said, that looks ridiculous. And I not only took the 3rd one out, I took the other 2 out and I never went back.
Yeah, I had to take mine out like the day before I started my job. I still can feel the little holes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true. When you look at all those old pictures, it's
a lot of jewelry, a lot of chains, a lot of goatees. It was a little different back then. But
well, Elizabeth, it's wild. He sent me a picture. I'm sure you've seen the picture, but it's a picture of him and Jay Favor and Neil, myself. It's the lineage of the big brother.
The family tree.
But in the family tree picture, when I saw that picture, I couldn't get over how much my older son looks like me, and I don't really see it in the
I think your older son looks just like you.
People tell me all the time, but when it's almost too close to you, you don't realize it. But I looked at the picture and I was like, good Lord. And I immediately took a screenshot and texted it to him, and he was like, good, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm always obnoxious. I'm like, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's gonna get even better. You're gonna get so much better as the years go on.
I had totally forgot that we were kind of like step brothers or whatever. You're my great uncle or stepdad or something
like that.
I don't know. I mean,
it was his son.
Yeah, Favor was my big brother, even though I'm like a year older than him. And then Neil was his big brother, and then I guess Neil was you and Favor's big brother, right?
Correct.
And then you were
Neil, very popular.
Well, just because
same pledge class, so you guys were like twins.
Yes.
Yeah,
so I was the old
pledges and guys, right? So
yeah, I was the old man in my pledge class, Elizabeth. I was a junior with I think 1 sophomore and a bunch of freshmen. And
well, it's probably the only way Neil was going to get to keep his bloodline going.
Yeah. Well, yes, he needed Jay. He absolutely needed to have Jay. But then I don't know who. I think Brian. So Brian was my little brother, and after him, Scott. I think it's Castaldi. I think
Dumbo.
Yeah.
Dumbo.
And after that,
yeah, I have no idea. I know my little was Matt Traeger Lurch, but then after that, I have no idea. I still have a paddle downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because that picture I sent to you, and then I guess you sent it to Favor, I think, because then Favor sent it to me today, and he's like, oh, look at this. I'm like,
yeah, that's my photo. Well, it's funny because you know who messaged me today on Facebook Messenger, who I haven't talked to in an eternity, is Matt Traeger, who I got along with swimmingly in the alumni years and loved hanging out with him, and I haven't talked to him in an eternity. And I guess he's just kind of found out about all this stuff.
Yeah, so and I found that interesting too when you interviewed Pony and like Avinash and I don't remember who else, but they had no idea that you were even doing these. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole. I mean, I don't know how much longer you're going to be able to do this, but there's a whole feeding ground of other guys that I'm sure would want to get their voice out here too.
What has become so Danny Milano, who you know very well, and Elizabeth, I know you know him as well, and his personality when he's really into something. When I first reached out to him about this, he kind of pushed off on it. It was like, "Hey, good to hear from you. Like maybe I'll check in again." And then the New York City thing happened, and I think that was the turning point for Danny. He was like, "Oh, there's like more to this." And then all of a sudden, I was getting messages every day. I just watched this one. I just watched this one, and I watched this one. And I think that probably has happened for a few people. Like it's what is this? Like, what a podcast? Like, what the hell is this? Like, I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. So I still,
No, it's great. I mean, it's definitely like, there's guys that have been mentioned, and I know you'll interview more, but I'd love to know what Palmsy's up to, or like you mentioned earlier, Splinter. It was so cool to see Sean Carolyn. I haven't talked to him in forever.
yeah.
We freaking live together, and don't even talk to him. But yeah, I mean, even Penguin's interview I thought was really good. Some guys have such a good, clear, crystal memory, and they haven't changed a bit. And then, so there's a lot of other guys I hope that can connect with you, and I hope that you continue to kind of have the energy to do this. So.
Yeah, no, I think your pledge class has been super enthusiastic, which has been great. I don't know the Rhos and the Sigmas and the Taus and the Upsilons. Eric Fire reached out to me really early on, and that's why I kind of thought to bring him in a little sooner with hopes of, I always thought he's a great guy, but I also thought this might help if he
Yeah,
can
broaden the base.
connect, yeah, exactly, and broaden it out a little bit more. But there have been some people who just I haven't been able to find. Like Jared's a great example. Jared has come up in a lot of these, and I don't really know how to get to Jared. Like I think I sent him a Facebook message, but he probably doesn't strike me as a Facebook guy, so I'm not surprised if he
Yeah.
hasn't. So, but I hope if by happenstance, like, yeah, what's that?
Get Leaf.
Leif, I hope. I'd love like him and Nathan, like who Nathan
Yeah.
I pledged with, who I would love to do this. But some people I understand, and I think they're listening to this, and there's no grudges or anything like that or misconceptions if people have jobs that are a little bit more sensitive, that they're careful of a profile, or people who are in certain parts of education who work with kids and don't. So I get it, but I'm hoping, Elizabeth, that some of them at least are watching and will show up in Binghamton in a couple
Yeah.
months to at least get together, because that's not going to be in a podcast format. We're not going to do any interviews.
No.
You're not going to do it live
No,
stream.
nah, pass. I'm not. I'm technically. I'm not there. I don't want to do that. All right, we're rounding it a little bit here. I guess my last couple of questions for both of you. I've been asking this recently, so I'll ask it of you both. Ladies first here. Elizabeth, do you have any regrets from college? Do you look back on college and have like any regrets from those years?
The only thing I would
Yeah,
say,
that's been just been like.
yeah, no, I think I would have done a study abroad.
Okay.
But I was just so ingrained in the day to day and being in a relationship and my friends and everything that I was like, I don't have time for that. So I think that that's something I would encourage our kids to do.
Got it. What about you, Scott?
The token answer is, I wouldn't change anything, but knowing what I know now, I had an amazing time. I just wish I would have appreciated even more when I was there. Because it went by so fast. And again, doing it as a sophomore versus a freshman, I kind of lost a year or whatever, but you can't recreate like what we all kind of went through and that the pledge experience. And it's like, it's not something you can ever replicate. I don't know whose interview it was. Something you had said on one of your first interviews is, yes, you move on, you meet new friends, and you have your buddy you go golfing with, and you do, but you don't have that same connection with like guys that you just see on a Saturday. To live together, to go through all this stuff together, the ups, the downs. I mean, we all went through everything with 9/11, and we've been through so much together as like a unit. That you don't realize it until you're outside of it, what you've missed. And I think that's what this podcast has kind of struck, is like kind of reignited that like that little flame or whatever you want to call it, and
I
it's
understand.
kind of a call back to action. So
Yeah, I think for a lot of what you just highlighted there is really important because it was a blink and it went by, and now in hindsight we all have kids who are, you know, teenagers who are about to embark on what we're talking about. Like
yeah,
these years are not too far for them. So like your wife just said, like you want to almost impress upon them, do this, and don't, you know, don't miss out on these opportunities. But then because life just hits warp speed when your kids come into this world,
it does, and
especially.
it's all good stuff. But it's just,
Yes, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's
you know,
great.
it's but there's, maybe it's nostalgia, maybe I don't know, but it was something that, and this is where I wish I had a better memory, and I'm glad I can remember it through these
Sure.
other storytellers here. But I mean, man, it was
No,
fun.
it was a fun it was a good, like you said, it's a good group of people, and I think some of the enthusiasm about being to see each other again speaks to that because it would be, you know, people are just like if, you know, there's a lot of people are going to get on planes and take off time to make this stuff happen. So clearly it meant something. But I think what a great success story you two are in this, you know, little story of all of this from sophomores in college to now, and you have a family. I'm assuming this is your forever home, because it seems like you put a lot of work into it. At least it's your home for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Are your family still like Elizabeth for you? Is your family still in like that greater Binghamton
Yeah.
area? And Scott for you in Albany? Is that
yeah.
right?
So we have no family down here still. So we're in it until the kids get through, through high school, at least here in New Jersey. And Elizabeth works from home, so she's got flexibility, and I'm hybrid.
Right.
I'm in the city 3 days a week, so we'll see
Okay.
what happens after that. But yeah, for now we're still in New Jersey.
Got it. Well, you dodged the law. That's a good thing. You made
Yeah.
it out. You came out clean. Your wife doesn't have to somehow explain that away to family or anybody else.
No,
Like I said,
it ends up being a good anecdotal story, like something you
yeah,
didn't know about me.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
right.
really?
He doesn't look like that type of guy to me. He doesn't seem that type.
Looked like
Well, good for you both. Elizabeth, I so appreciate you being game to do this because I will not, this will be a one-off. This will not be a common thing because you have such a different perspective on it because you really, like you said, you were in the thick of it. You befriended a lot of these guys and got to know their significant others, and I'm sure you know some of their children at this point. So it's something for you as well. You know, you stuck with this guy all these years. So good. Good job. Well, good job, Scott. You got a good one. Well, thank you both for doing this.
Yeah,
This was
thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
I look forward, even hopefully before the trip up in April. Hopefully we can all get together, and I look, I don't know who we have next, but we keep looking out for that next episode. So
It should. I'm hoping. I'm pressuring Jeff a little bit because, and this will, when yours comes out, this will be a past tense story. But we tried to put out a little bit of a notification about the gathering that's coming up, but realized we stepped on some toes in doing that, and I could explain that offline to you both. So we had to pull it. But instead, what I did for the next one that's going to come out, I was a little cleaner with it, and again, I'll explain that in a little bit after this. But yeah, in fact, yeah, you people listening, you don't need to hear all of this. Scott, Elizabeth, thank you. So don't leave me, but for the rest of you, we're out of here.
thanks,
Thanks,
man.
Jeff.
Pleasure.
She leaves me in a cool, cool sweat. Got a